Greetings and God bless. I wanted to do a video about if you have had post traumatic stress response. Uh, it's important to look at any physiological, biological issues that may have either preceded the events or the prolonged trauma that you were subjected to, and or look at any biological, physiological issues that occurred after the prolonged trauma or the initial traumatic event. And of course, people are looking at concussions or bleeding or whatever. Uh, and what I believe to be a factor for some folks with post-traumatic stress response, and I call it post-traumatic stress response because to have a response from a difficult situation, pardon me, I'm just going to adjust this. It's not a disorder to be traumatized when you've been under a prolonged, difficult situation. It's sorry again. Um, it's a natural response to respond, and so um, being traumatized is pathologized when in fact it's just a natural reaction. It's not a disorder to be traumatized, and trauma is subjective. So I notice a lot of people, including other people who have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. They'll be like, well, what you're experiencing or what you experienced isn't traumatic, so I'm not going to respect your boundaries. Um, so anyways, you get to decide what's traumatic for you. Just like allergies or whatever, just because somebody else isn't allergic to pesticides and glyphosate doesn't mean that your allergic reaction is invalid. However, a lot of people, and it's very strange because um, people seem to have a pathological indifference, and this is a lot of people where they're just invalidating somebody who has like if you took a differential diagnosis, they really do have an allergy to pesticides, and people tend to it seems to me ignore that, or maybe some people just need to be very aggressive, or what some people think is very aggressive in order to have their needs, their just survival to be accommodated. But I digress. So something that I have been trying to figure out the past, well, for years, but recently I've just been looking into low grade parasite infections. So I was exposed to Lyme disease on the East Coast in a Lyme endemic area where everybody else was getting bullseye rashes. So I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that I had had exposure to Lyme. I mean, we saw the ticks were everywhere. And with Lyme comes other what's called co-infections. And but I could have gotten parasites from other sources. When I was a kid, I helped my I just helped with dealing with sanitation issues, and I've had jobs where I was handling like just cleaning bathrooms and trash. So, but I don't know. It could have been from people's pets or people, but there was a time, I think probably around maybe 2013, 14, where I was having really bad sinus infections. I mean, it was so bad. I was like, I need to find an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and like, what is going on? And so this terrible ENT office is the only one, is very profitable. It's the only one in this major city, and it's very hard to get in. But the guy put some little camera down and then whipped it out of my nose. He just like whipped it. I mean, he didn't carefully take it out. So it was just like, what is going on? I let you put something inside of my body and you whip it out like that. Anyway, he was like, "Yeah, everything's fine. Looks better than fine." And the thing is, like, I hydrate, I mean, I'm trying to alleviate the discomfort of chronic sinus infections. So he was just like, "Oh, everything's fine." And I was like, "Well, what's going on here?" And so I was, I did they did some type of allergy testing on my skin. And then at one point he was like, we did a X-ray, CT scan. He was like, yeah, we should just operate on your, like peel your face off and, turn it inside out. And didn't tell me why. He just said, this is what, you know, I suggest. I'm like, I'm not going to let you do that. You don't know how to properly take a scope or whatever that thing was out of my nose. You're telling me everything's fine, but you're telling me let's do an operation and turn your face inside out. Like, but that was the medical system then, and I have just lost complete faith, and I just don't. Anyways, everybody's like, "Oh, be nice to the doctor. Oh, poor doctor." I mean, even now, 2022, after all of this stuff that's been going on, people are still kowtowing to this evil, diabolical industry that exploits you, that expects you to pay them more than you can afford in terms of time, money, and effort, insanity, and they just try to harm you and gaslight you. But I mean, because that's what this guy was doing. So, anyways, fast forward however many years later, 8 years later, I'm like, oh, I think I have strongyloides. And strongyloides is a type of parasite that can become systemic, and it's not good for you. I mean, uh, and I think in my childhood, I probably had like a couple other parasite exposures, uh, and and so I just think if you're dealing with post traumatic stress response, it's important to look into low grade uh, infections. Definitely look into parasite infections. And unfortunately, even infectious diseases doctors are clueless, because I went to see one some years after that ENT, and he was just oblivious and unhelpful, because during the time that I was seeing him trying to figure out what Lyme co-infection I should begin to tackle, and he was like, "Oh, well, we don't have Lyme here," because I happened to be in Montana at the time. And I'm like, so nobody's ever traveled from a Lyme endemic area? Not to mention that in Montana, in Hamilton, Montana, Dr. Bergdorfery worked for 40 years with ticks, and he released hard shell ticks in that area, which was, few like 20 miles away or something from where I was seeing the doctor. So, I mean, it's just incredible, the gaslighting, the lies, the ignorance, and just the invalidation of a valid concern by the trusted agents of the public good. And people try to tell me that I'm negative, and I'm like, this is just a fact. Like, this is just a reality. And, you know, I have no patience for BS, and people are just living this grand delusion, and I guess it works for them, they just but anyways, for those who are dealing with post-traumatic stress response, look into any chronic low-grade infections that you might have, whether it can be something like Lyme, Epstein-Barr. So apparently science is not confirmed about the existence of what is called viruses, because as you probably remember from high school science, a virus is not alive. It's this kind of strange thing that has no metabolism. So, what is coming to light is that viruses are kind of decay products. So, so something is going on. If somebody has a lot of Epstein-Barr indicators, it's there's some kind of um, disintegration or decay or something going on. So it could um, be exposure to toxins, exposures to mold, exposures to EMFs that's depleting and disintegrating or causing this debris, which is the virus, to occur. And something that I also don't get is like when I was a younger, when I was a child, they took samples. They did a swab and they looked it up in the microscope. And it seems like for the most part, doctors, even though I have insurance, they don't bother sending stuff away. They don't properly take care of samples. They just like, throw it at the reception desk. I mean, and then they try to invalidate the results because like I had paid out of pocket for a staff test for the sinuses, and the ENT was like, "Well, there's staph right here on this surface. There's staph. You're going to have high levels of staph everywhere." And but I'm supposed to trust their results. It's just this gaslighting, invalidating, criminal. It's criminal. It really, really is. And I don't know enough about the law to stand up for my rights. And I'm just trying to survive. So I really have difficulty advocating because it just is so insane and so unfair and so systematic. And good people turn a blind eye. There's nobody there to back you up. Um, because even the good people, the activists who are trying to save the oppressed, like when you actually have them right beside you, they don't want to they only want to save the oppressed when they're talking to their friends about how they're saving their oppressed, or they want to read a book, but they don't really want to say, hey, what's going on here? Like they don't really want to stand up to the actual um like violator, even if it's just to speak up. I mean, like, I'm not saying go to the court of law or stand up to somebody with a gun facing you. It's just like it's very pretty terrible. So anyways, I just think that it's really important to look into doing regular parasite cleanses. Everybody has parasites, and they really do affect your mood and your ability to your resilience. And I think that that's all I wanted to say. So thank you for watching. God bless.